The heart attack was a wake-up call.
So I called 911, and I thought I lost my husband.
You couldn't tell who he was. He looked that bad.
Hello, I'm TV9 Scott Sanborn, and I have a personal story to share with you. Every year, more than 1 million Americans have a heart attack, but it's always the other guy, until it happened to me. On April 10th, at the age of 46, I suffered a heart attack. It changed my life and the lives of those I love the most. Hopefully, you'll see something in my story that'll help you prevent this from happening to you or someone you know.
We've been married only a year, but we've been together almost going on 4.5 now.
When I first met Becky, my wife, and she and I went hiking, it was our first date, and we were hiking at Palisades Kepler in the woods, and she was just leaving me in the dust, and I'm trying to catch up, and I started to get a pain in my chest, so I told her, wait up.
Because from the day when I met Scott, Scott's had chest pain, and I told him from the day one, you need to see somebody. You really got to get this checked out. I mean, our day starts at 2 a.m. We really have a very unique schedule compared to everybody else.
And that morning, it was about 1:20, and I was on the exercise machine, and I felt a pain in my chest. And so I just stopped for a minute, and it went away. Oh, I've had this before. So I continued to exercise. And that pretty much was the way it was.
I did get up with him. That was one of the mornings I did get up with him. And he was moving slower, never told me anything. Absolutely nothing.
But then I had this chest pain on and off throughout the morning, and when I came to work I had it. But I just thought I was stressed. I attributed it to the new routine that I was trying and getting up at 1 o'clock instead of 2 o'clock. So I just shrugged it off. Well, about 15 minutes before we hit the air at 5:30, Joe and I enter what we call the worst part of our day, and that is going on to put makeup on. And it was during that makeup session that I told Joe that I wasn't really feeling that well.
And in fact, he said while we were standing there, he said, my chest is real tight right now. And he said that my left hand is kind of tingly. Well, I kind of looked at him and I said, you better go to the doctor or something, get checked out. I have no idea what's happening, but it just didn't sound right. And he looked at me and he said, I'm not going to spend all day at the hospital for them to tell me that I'm stressed out. I'll work through this.
And pretty much stayed away the whole morning show. But then as soon as I got off the air, it came back. And not thinking wisely, I kept putting it off, thinking I was just stressed. And when I came home that day after having pains all day long, and I came home that day, I went and got the medical encyclopedias, and I started reading the medical encyclopedias. And I think it was my way of trying to tell myself that this wasn't happening. So I was trying to look at, and I came across warning signs, because a lot of the symptoms of a heart attack are also symptoms of something else. And so I tried to tell myself, this is something else.
And I came home from work that night, and he was sitting on the couch, and I knew right away something was wrong.
Maybe I didn't want to know, and that's probably the big thing. You know, us men tend to be macho, and we don't need to see doctors. I'll be fine. So I took some Rolaids and went to bed.
And when I went to turn in bed, my first thought was, I'm having a very major hot flash here, because our bed was saturated. I mean, our bed was very, very wet. And I thought this is strange. As I turned, I hit Scott, and he was like ice. He was just absolutely like ice. And as fast as I touched him, I knew right away something was wrong, and he just let out a moan. And I jumped him and said, we're going. And all he could get out was call.
And the pain that I had in my chest was a pressure that I had never felt before.
So I called 911, and I thought I lost my husband. Yeah.
A lot of the time I just spent moaning, rolling back and forth and moaning, just praying that someone would get to the house and take care of me.
It was like 12 minutes. It was 12 the longest minutes of my life. And trying to watch him, trying to talk to the emergency person on the phone, trying to wake up 2 of our children before they were woke up by sirens and strangers coming in our home. I don't ever want to do it again.
Once the paramedics got to the house, and once they were over me on the bed, I just remember letting go and giving them freedom to do whatever they needed to do.
Scott came in by ambulance in very poor condition.
I felt scared. Scared like I've never been scared before. Guilty that I was waking up my family in the middle of the night, wondering who's going to fill in for me that morning, because I knew I wasn't going to make it to the station, so I hope we weren't calling too late to get somebody in to do the morning show. All of those things are rushing through my head.
I mean, the paramedics had told us who this was, but you didn't know it by looking at him. That's how bad he looked.
And that's what I remember I kept saying over and over and over again. I just want the pain to stop. I just want it to stop. And that was foremost in my mind. I wanted the pain to stop.
He was very sick. He was pale. He was unrecognizable. That's how pale he was. And his lips were blue.
When they got me into the emergency room, I kept my eyes closed the whole time because I really didn't want to look at it. I didn't want to see what was happening. I just wanted to be better.
That all kind of moved very rapidly. I was very fortunate that I have a very, very dear friend who was a nurse in the emergency room that I didn't know was at St. Louis at the hospital at the time, and she was there that night, so she kind of guided us through it all.
And then when I saw Becky come through the door is when I panicked, because she just looked panicked. I went with Becky and just kind of stood by her side and held her, and we talked to Scott and watched him work.
When you're having a heart attack, you know it, or you should know it. I mean, not all people have the same symptoms, but it felt like a truck was driving over my chest. It was so tight and there was so much pressure, and it just hurt. It was taking my breath away. I'd broken out in a cold sweat like nothing I'd ever done before. I mean, it was just pouring out of me. And I knew it. There was just no doubt in my mind.
And I knew they were giving him medication to lessen the pain, but the pain was getting worse. And I kept trying to tell him, well, honey, you got to give time for this to work. I know you're hurting, give it some time here. And they would increase the morphine and kept increasing the morphine, but the pain wouldn't stop. There was nothing they could do really for the pain except to dull it. I stayed there, it was probably till about 4, I think it was like 4 a.m. Then I came home and explained to our 4 children that were here what was going on. Then I went back up to the hospital then, and I was very blessed. They cleaned up everything here. That was hard, as I found out. They filled 3 garbage bags full of needles and bags and bandages, everything from up in our room, and they didn't want me to see that. So, why did I ignore all the signs? Why did I wait all day before getting medical attention? There are many reasons you've probably heard before. I didn't have time for a heart attack. I put everything before me. My wife, my children, my job. I put everyone else first and me last. I lay in bed now and one of my most precious feelings, I just want to feel his chest. I want to feel him beating. No, he's okay. He's still here. I know now that the symptoms started years ago, but I didn't know what they were. I thought I was just stressed out.
The biggest part with most heart attack patients is that initial denial phase. Virtually everyone, especially young patients who come in with heart disease, have had symptoms for weeks, months, sometimes years before they finally come to the recognition that they've had a problem.
To go down the list quickly, what are my stressors? Lack of sleep, the time I go to work, the type of work that I do, the fact that I have kids at home. I have 2 teenagers now in high school. That's a whole story in itself. Smoking, not exercising correctly, not eating correctly. All of those things come together. And you don't really realize it because they're all little things on their own. But when you put them all together, you realize you're really causing your body undue stress.
The denial phase can be extremely and incredibly difficult for type A personalities and males. They tend to view it as an assault on their manhood. They tend to view it as this can't be happening to me, I'm otherwise healthy. So they sit at home, sometimes for many hours, in the throes of an infarction, when they could have been in the hospital getting the vessel opened.
But I still have some guilty feelings about what I put my family through, because this wasn't just my heart attack. This was my family's heart attack. This heart attack affected my wife and scared her to death. It scared my children. I never want to see the fear in their eyes that I saw. That hurts. I want to show you what caused my heart attack and how doctors saved my life. I'm going to take you inside my heart when we come back.
What happens when a person has a heart attack is one of the arteries to the heart becomes completely blocked. And what Scott needed was to have that artery opened up. We recommend taking people to our heart cath lab where we make them comfortable, and we actually physically put a catheter up to the location where the blockage is, and we use what's called a balloon or angioplasty, and we simply push that clot loose or out of the way.
When they got the blockage open, the pain was gone. That quick. And I remember the moment it went away. That I remember. The pain was constant until they opened that artery. Let me show you what happened to my heart during the attack. This is a life-size model of the human heart. You can see it's a muscle only about the size of your fist. You see these little red lines here? These are your coronary arteries. They carry blood and therefore oxygen to the heart. Without oxygen, the heart dies. Well, my right coronary artery over here became blocked, so I had a heart attack. What blocked my artery? Well, as this enlarged model of an artery shows, plaque or fatty deposits, represented here in yellow, build up inside the artery walls. You can get a better picture of it inside. It develops over time if we regularly eat unhealthy foods and don't exercise. This buildup of plaque is what's commonly known as heart disease. Now, I was fortunate to not have to undergo bypass surgery where doctors would have to open up my chest. What I had done was a stent procedure called balloon angioplasty. This is how it works. Doctors take this catheter and run it up through the groin, all the way to the heart. Then they take a very thin wire, thin enough to fit inside that small artery, run it up through the catheter, and go to work on the heart from the inside. Now, let's go inside my heart and take a look. This is what the doctors see on a monitor after they insert the catheter into my right coronary artery. Here is the catheter. First, they shoot dye through my right coronary artery to get a look at the source of my heart attack. I want you to keep an eye on this area. You can't see anything here right now because this section of my artery is completely blocked off, meaning there is no blood flow to this section of my heart. Now, they take a wire through the catheter into my right coronary artery to open up the area closed off by plaque or atherosclerosis. Now, as dye is reintroduced, you can see the part of the artery you couldn't see before. Here it is before the wire is inserted, and here it is after blood flow is restored. With my right coronary artery reopened, doctors insert a balloon. This is angioplasty. They expand the balloon, which is surrounded by a wire mesh stent. The stent expands with the balloon. When they deflate and remove the balloon, the metal stent stays in place, holding open the affected artery. Now, I'm fixed. You can see how easily the dye and therefore blood flows through my right coronary artery. The healing process can now begin, which includes drug therapy, cardiac rehabilitation, and proper nutrition. This is what's now inside my coronary artery holding it open. This stent will never come out. Doctors completed the entire procedure you just saw in about an hour and 10 minutes. But my heart problems didn't end there. Less than 6 weeks after receiving the stent, the pain came back telling me something was wrong. My cardiologist broke the bad news.
What we were dealing with was that your artery was threatening to close. It was not actually closed off. And that process we call restenosis. It's been one of the most challenging issues confronting cardiology in the last 5 years.
So it's helping, but it's not necessarily a cure.
That's exactly right. And interestingly, the type of blockage that comes back with a stent is different than the original blockage. This is more a development of, we refer to as scar tissue, where the cells that are injured along the lining adjacent to the stent tend to proliferate and grow inside the stent. So it's not a true plaque, not dependent on cholesterol per se, but more proliferation of cells and development of scar tissue.
In large part, the care of patients with coronary artery disease lies in the hands of the patient.
That's exactly right. The patient needs to take a huge role into their health care because, again, we can catheter-based interventions, angioplasty, stenting. These are procedures that get people out of trouble. The best medicine is preventive medicine, and that is practicing good, heart-healthy behaviors.
I want you to grab pencil and paper because a little bit later I'm going to give you a phone number you can call if you have any questions about what you see in this program. And next, you'll see what I'm doing now to stay heart healthy. Don't go away. By now, you know I lived my life in denial before my heart attack. I ate what I wanted, when I wanted, how much I wanted. I never stayed on a regular exercise routine. My weight would fluctuate, but usually I was overweight. Not obese, just overweight. And I smoked. Only a pack a week, but I smoked. My heart attack was a wake-up call, a call to change the way I lived, or I wasn't going to live. Well, thanks to the latest medical technology, cardiac rehab, and nutrition classes, I'm now living a heart-healthy lifestyle. Rehab is just as important, if not more so, than what the doctors do in the emergency room. The doctors get you through the trauma and they get you out of imminent danger. But those people in rehab, they are just as important to get you back into a lifestyle that you're accustomed to.
Cardiac rehab is a program where we're really looking at trying to get people back on their feet again following a cardiac event. Most people are here anywhere from 12 to 18 sessions, so that would be 6 weeks if they're doing 3 days a week.
1 minute.
He's been very successful with his smoking, his exercise, his loss of weight, really making some dietary changes, and has a plan for making those long term.
2, 1. I learned a lot of things in rehab. How vital regular exercise is. Not strenuous exercise, but daily exercise. Get the heart rate up for at least 30 minutes. How vitally important it is to feed yourself the good stuff. I hated leaving rehab for one main reason. It was security. I knew that they were watching me, they were taking care of me, but they also made you feel good about yourself. When I'm walking, I'm thinking about how good I'm going to feel when this is over. Because when I start to walk, it feels good because I'm outside and I'm doing something good for myself. And I'm looking at the trees and the birds and the sky and appreciating all the good things about life, the simple things which mean a lot more now.
We make even more of a point of having time together.
Becky and I have always liked to experiment with new things. So this has really been good for us because we like to experiment. We've got Monday scratched out. Shish kebab. We had crab claws and crab legs on Tuesday. We had Subway yesterday. Salmon is today. This is one of the fish that are rich in omega-3 fatty acids. Now we eat it all the time. And she claims I make the best salmon.
He does.
Definitely gradual changes. That's always the key. Nutrition is something you do over a lifetime. It's not how well you can follow a diet for 2 weeks or 6 months. It's changes you can make to benefit your heart and heart health for the rest of your life.
And at first it was a struggle because everything was new, you know, and I didn't want to eat anything that had fat in it. I didn't want to eat any red meat. She's helped me incorporate a lot of my new eating habits into meals that we have every day now. You know, we just cook them a little bit differently, and so everybody can eat them. And that's good because then it makes us feel as a family like were eating together. Before, a salad would be the side dish. Now we have a lot more salads as the main dish, and that's a lot healthier, and the kids love it, and it's quick and easy.
But it's got to the point now that it's second nature. I mean, every bit of it's second nature. It's part of our routine.
I mean, I just had a heart attack in April, and you would think that this would take a long process to learn how to do this, and it really doesn't take that long at all. It takes really just a few weeks of doing it every day, and then it becomes second nature.
The main thing about cardiovascular disease is it does not picky about who it's choosing to affect. So it affects both men and women, all ages and all races.
Denial is a huge component of cardiac. Most patients want to believe it's something else like heartburn or indigestion, and they'll sit home with this for weeks, for months, until it gets bad enough.
For the first sign of symptoms, call 911. Don't delay. A delay in time of treatment is perhaps the loss of their life.
Don't ignore any sign. Don't ignore any sign your body is telling you, because it can happen to you. You don't think so, but it can.
I live with some fear, yeah. When I get a little chest pain or a little tinge in my chest, yeah, it wakes you up. I've never been more aware of my health in my life than I am right now.
Well, I think his prognosis is excellent. We have worked in a couple of different vessels, and I think our final results were good. Whether it's angioplasty and stenting in Scott or anybody else, these treatments are not a cure.
I got a second chance. I'm very lucky. When you consider a third of all heart attack victims die.
And everybody's constantly telling me, take good care of them, take good care of them. Well, they don't have to worry. I'm going to, but they don't have to worry about me doing it because Scott's doing it himself.
I just want to think about the positive, keep exercising, keep eating right, and look toward the future and have hope.
Now it's kind of like you notice every little smile. You notice every little movement. I watch him with our children. I watch him with our grandbaby. And I just think, thank you, God. He's here. He's here.
I have every reason to live. My family, first and foremost. My children, my wife, my mother, my brothers and sisters, everybody I love, my career, which I love, everything that I hold dear. I have every reason in the world to live. So what's the bottom line? To stay heart healthy, just remember this: exercise 30 minutes a day. And when it comes to eating, the three most important things: eat 3 meals a day, be sure to include 5 fruits and vegetables a day, and cut down on saturated fat or animal foods. It's that simple. The American Heart Association has everything you need to know. We have a link to their website at kcrg.com. Just click on the heart-to-heart icon. Thanks for watching, and remember to take care of yourself.